and I'm very happy to be part of this ramp up today. Last week, the Elon Musk from Tesla, he tweeted saying that their production system elements has been 75% is automated. And he also tweeted saying that they are 10 years ahead in the technology, innovation, and the automation. It's a 10 years ahead in compared to any other auto industry out there. That's really awesome, right? So I'm Rajita Rachuru. I'm working at Optum for the last 6 years, and I'm leading a performance engineering excellence. And we also develop the automation test tools tailored to our organizational needs. And my team also supports the peak season performance testing and the scalability for the entire Optum ecosystem. I'm today here to talk about our journey towards the innovation, starting from the innovation throughout the with the automation and how we end everything with the automation throughout our the United Health Group, the software development life cycle. Next slide, please. United Health Group is it's a Minnetonka-based company, and it's one of the largest organization. We provide services for the healthcare product and the insurance services. We have the core business. We have two distinct businesses. One is the United Health Group. Other one is the Optum Rx. Our core business functionalities, like in the Optum, we have four core business functionality. One is Optum Pharmacy, Optum Care, Optum Bank, and Optum Insight. And I work on Optum Technology. Optum Technology is one of the fast growing technology space, enabling the health services for all of these four top core business functionalities. Next slide, please. As you all know, healthcare is one of the very complex system. We wanted our members to have a hassle-free experience. We wanted to be as much as transparent for all of our members and the providers, and we wanted to make sure we give affordable and high quality services with every engagement we have it with our members and the providers. So that's one of our mission. So we always work very hard to make it as much as a simplification through this process. And we also try to make it more personalized. We personalize and tailor all our interactions as per their needs. Next slide, please. The United Health Group is one of the top rated #1 company coming to the insurance and coming to the insurance and insurance products. We almost have a $226 billion revenue, and we have almost like 230 million individuals worldwide. And to support this kind of a massive organization, we have 300,000 people working just for an United Health Group. Next slide, please. So look at the scale of the organization. To serve this kind of company, we need a lot of technology, and we need a lot of applications to support. We put a lot of effort on the engineering culture, and our technology is very wide. We have anywhere from the legacy source system from the 30-40 years old to the modern open source technology, moving more into a modern open source technology. We continuously striving to modernize all of our platforms and all of our system. To do all of this stuff, we need a lot of technology people. So we have close to 21,000 people working just on the technology space. And we have a lot of data centers and mainframes as well. And if you see that we have 150 petabytes of data, the data is so much crucial for this, the healthcare industry. And we also spend 3.5 billion annually just on the technology and the innovation. So innovation is one of our cultures. So innovation is inventing the future, learning from our past is one of our mission and one of our core value. Next slide, please. with this kind of with this kind and the scale and the magnitude of the applications, we run into a lot of challenges throughout the SDLC cycle or through the DevOps cycle in the past few years. So I have seen in the last few years there is a lots of ups and downs to make and to bring in the change. So a lot of how did we overcome some of the automation challenges that we had throughout our DevOps is, I think most of you know already that, one of the key is the collaboration, right? So because that so many teams out there, most of the teams, they work in a silos, and there is not much collaboration happens between the teams, and there is not there is no right tools, and the process has been set up. Every silo teams has their own tools and their own process and the strategies, and we had lots of issues with the environment, and managing this environment was very expensive between the system to system, and with the data is a lot more bigger because of the so many source systems that we had. Setting up the data in any of the production or in the non-prod environments is even more challenging. And again, it's sharing the knowledge between the teams was never happening, and the limited collaboration was happening between the business team as well as between our IT teams. So all of this was causing a lot of delays in our release cycles, and by the end of the time we released something, the QA didn't had much time to test anything, or our quality engineers had any not much time left to test anything, and if they find some problems, but with the development team didn't had much time to react and fix something. And because of all of the test data issues and the challenges, and even if they find something, we didn't know it was the right defect to fix it. So this was causing a lot of frustration with the development team as well as the operations team. They were putting a lot of extra effort and a lot of time, and we were started losing some good talented resources in the last few years as well. And we did had a lot of different versions of APIs, and because of the less collaborations was happening between the teams to teams, if there is any API version changes, we didn't the cross collaboration teams are integrated, other application integrated teams, they didn't know the versions were changing. So all of these production, it was causing a lot of production issues as well. Next slide, please. Just to overcome some of these challenges, we started addressing the 6 pillars is a very critical for us, right? One of the most important, so that we started pushing a lot of automation in part of the DevOps. So there is a both from the top management as well as from the bottom up. We both understand, like, the automation is a key success for our applications. So there was a lot of push coming from both the sides, and we started doing a lot of automation for some of the repetitive works. So one of the major pillar what we observed during the automation was the collaborative culture. As you see, the company is so huge and so many teams, and there is a lot of silo teams doing their own stuff. Bringing everybody together and making it the self-service was one of the key success. In the DevOps model or in the agile calls, now the business is playing a major role, working with our DevOps team as well as the stakeholders are also part of the DevOps. Now we also started doing a lot of automation as part of our collaborative culture. Like if I have to engage the collaborative or integrated systems like any other backend systems or a third-party systems, if I need to engage them as part of my Scrum, if there is any, if some changes are coming, or if I wanted them to make some changes, then we engage them through the some automated change tickets, and we started making a smaller cycles so that we can test early and we can impact them faster. And we also broke all of the silos team into more of a self-service model where all of the DevOps teams, they themselves can do their own testing, their own configurations, their own deployments, and sort of those kind of things. So now the integrated teams are also being part of the Scrum calls. So by notifying them through the rally or through the Jira, saying that, hey, this particular API has been getting changed, or this infrastructure needs to be changed, or this data needs to be updated on your end. So they have been notified and impacted through the project management. Now we have a lot of training materials available for the teams to go and look it up if something changes, and there is a code repository, version control repository out there, and we have a lot of tools that integrated as part of the GitHub and the shared folders and the share repository and sort of those things. So we are getting much better and better. We see with the smaller release cycles, with all of the breaking down these silos into a more of a self-service model, we are seeing the better results coming through. The next two pillars are mostly about the design for DevOps and the continuous integration and the continuous delivery. These two are the another heart of the DevOps in our organization. Basically, like during the design phase, we started addressing very early in our sprint PI plannings. We started addressing what is the better way to go about automating, and what automation technology do we need, what kind of technology stack we need, what kind of testing tools are and other tools that we need to integrate as part of the DevOps. We started automating a lot of these stuff, like for generating some code base, and also we automated to spin up our own OpenShift environment, or setting up the configurations in the environment, in the servers, in the both in the non-prod and the production environments. And we put all kinds of automation for the alert monitorings, and we set up all of these monitoring tools automatically, and also the automated all of the build pipelines through the Jenkins. This eliminated a lot of dependencies from the other integrated systems or from the silo systems. And we created we started integrating with other teams to reuse some of their code, and wherever the APIs are there, if we can automate those APIs as much as possible, we started doing that. And we went more towards creating the microservices, and created microservices early in the design phase, so that we can reuse some of this stuff as well. And again, as part of the continuous integration, as soon as the developer writes some codes and checks in, we have all of the automated builds, which picks up the code from the repository into the master repository, and it deploys the code into the to the dev boxes and the test boxes. All of these things has been automated. The once the build has been deployed, we have the Jenkins jobs, which runs these tests against those new builds, all the unit level test runs in this, all the unit level testing and some of the functional testing runs as part of the build, and it pulls the SLAs measuring against the vital business functions, and pulls all of the error rates and the response times, and if there is how many passes we had, how many fails we had, what kind of test data against. So all kinds of details and detailed data that we started pulling, and we started sharing with our stakeholders as well. So this is eliminated all of these automations that what we have done during the design phase as part of the continuous integration and the deployments. It eliminated a lot of dependencies that we have to wait on the on the infrastructure teams, or with the center of excellences, with the other teams, that it eliminated some of those dependencies as well. And we were able to provide a positive feedback, or we were able to find the defects very early in the Scrum, and we were able to work with our downstream integrated partners very quickly. And again, another pillar is the continuous testing. Continuous testing is a very critical, and it's one of my favorite topic too. So in the continuous testing, can you go to the next slide, Veera? Oops. Yeah, all the way to the continuous testing. So in the continuous testing, we have been asked, what are the things that we can do the automation, right? Do we have to automate all of the unit test cases? Do we have to automate the functional integration and the performance testing scripts too? So basically, for some of the applications that we own and we manage, we automated everything. So we started from the unit level testing to all the way to the performance testing. So everything we put it under one folder. So we had many tools that we were using. So some teams were using some open source tool and few other. So everybody's the experience is different when it comes to running these tests as part of the pipelines. So there are some tools which was taking like 5-6 hours before once a build gets deployed, it runs like literally 5 hours to run through the entire suite of the regression test cases. So we kind of looked into some of these issues across the teams, and we kind of set a standard tool. Basically for us, it worked out the Neoload. In the Neoload, we have all kinds of unit level functional performance and everything has in one umbrella, and we just kick it off as part of Jenkins pipeline. And we also have the Dynatrace integrated with the Neoload. So we were able to once the test is run. So we have the data basically from the custom dashboards, and also we have the data from the Dynatrace monitoring if there is any problem in the code, or if there is any infrastructure issues, or if there is API is breaking through because of some other backend services or some data is not existing. We were able to debug very fast with the integration as part of it. And we also have a custom dashboards in place, which we created in the Neoload, which usually they send out to email to all the stakeholders with a build statistics saying how many passes we have, how many fails we had, and the response times, whatever that our stakeholders needs based on the each application level. So we kind of started providing that information very early in the life cycle. So with that, all of that process that once we started putting with the automation for the different test cases, but we still had a problems with the test data, right? Because with that kind of huge millions, the very big millions of records and the billions of records is there on the production database. When you start testing in the non-prod, because in the non-production environments, the databases has a smaller databases, and they may have, they cannot set up like billions of records, right? And the data gets wiped off every 3 to 4 months. They refreshes the database, the data, and they move on to the different databases kind of stuff. And we have lots of databases. We have a lot of mainframe legacy source systems still. So for example, I have sits in another source system, and the benefits information stores in another system. So when I make a request for the test data, depending on the complexity of the data and the number of records that I ask to set up in the data, it could take anywhere between the 3 to 4 months of SLAs, right? So because that, the team A has to finish before the team A has to finish setting up the data before it goes to the team B and then the team C, and all of these legacy source system data has been set up, then the data has to come back to the non-relational databases or relational databases in between them to access. So this is becoming a very challenging for us to work with so many teams. So that was creating a lot of issues and slowing down our Scrum release levels. It was impacting our releases too. So now the teams has their own automation done to some part. So that eliminated for the last few years, they are all working on the silos and their own system to do some of this automation, but still we are not there. The reason is that we don't have one tool which can do end-to-end data setups, right? So my team currently, we are working on setting up, we are spinning up our own automation tool to set up this kind of data from the begin to end. So the end users like our quality engineers, QEs, and also the development team, if they wanted to set up some data in the early sprint, so we are trying to create this tool where they can go ahead and set up their own data across all of these multiple source systems based on the need. And they can validate their data using their APIs and things like that. So we are providing some of those such capabilities too. So we kind of working towards the different ways to how to make it more of an automation. And another challenge that we also run into is mostly on the test environments, is another big challenge, because we have a lot of third-party the third-party calls to which goes outside the Optum network, outside the Optum. So most of these third-party people, they don't have an on-prod. Even if there is an on-prod environments, we don't have access to test anything from the end-to-end integration perspective. So to test some of those stuff, and because of the data complexities which I just talked about it, to avoid some of those stuff, we have the service virtualization we built in. Next slide, please, Vera. Service virtualization. So the service in the service virtualization, we took a shift left in our the how we do the testing basically. So our development team as well as our QEs, they have set up the mock services, and all their testing, if the if the API, once their APIs are ready and if the integrated environment is not available or data is not available, they mock the services and they test their unit level test cases. And sometimes when they are running the build pipeline, if their regression test cases fails because of the environment broken or something, those integrate the regression tests point back to the service virtualization tool, and they run they run their test, and they provide the feedback to their teams. So we use as a service virtualization extensively in our organization right now. And my team, we support the survey, we develop the service virtualization. This is an ingrown, again, the tool based on our organizational need. We customize this tool so that everybody in the organization, it's more become like a web UI interfacing tool. So we have a lot of developers and QAs and QEs and operations teams are leveraging. In fact, even business teams are leveraging this tool to mark some of their services and pointing their applications for the marking services, because of to eliminate some of these test data and the test environmental issues as well. And for performance testing, any of the middle layers, if I need to test, like like a message queues, or if it's a layer 7, or if there is any APIs which not been it's still in the early stages of the development and it's not been integrated with any of the other backend systems, we still do a lot of the production testing using the service virtualization. So we measure our infrastructure the infrastructure scalability, like the hardware, and if there is any memory leak is happening on the server side, or if we need to check any of the circuit breakers or some of those stuff, we point back everything to service virtualization. We run our automation test on that tool, on that way, to eliminate some of the dependencies which was causing in the our Scrum testing. Next slide, please. So all being that said, during the release level testing, we do most of our performance testing and the regression testing, and even the functional level testing, all of them done in the non-prod environments. But after the post-release, we do a lot of testing even in the production. The reason is that, as I mentioned, some of these applications literally calls 300 backend services, and they have, I don't know how many database and how many source systems it calls to pull this information out. And these are really, really huge applications, right? So non-prod environments are really, one is it's not scaled, as well as we don't have enough test data to check all the critical data functionality and the memberships. And the third is that these environments don't have the integration with some of the third-party calls that we need to get the data from. So to test all of those stuff, we do a lot of testing in the production, especially the performance testing we do in the production after the post-release. So we do like every weekly, like we will have weekly 2 releases. So we do 2 times the production testing in the post-release after with the normal volume. And we do have the peak season testing. My team also supports a peak season and a peak season testing. Usually we take one of those peak business days numbers and we multiply like 2 or 3 times, and we make sure the entire ecosystems runs fine and smooth. So during the peak season testing, we find lots of issues throughout the entire ecosystem. How we use a lot of test data. It's every test data that the test data we usually use the unique test data, so that we get a real end user experience when the volume goes really like 2 or 3 times higher. So during the test, we find a lot of issues, basically throughout the entire ecosystem, because there is so many layers in this kind of big applications. We may have like 5 to 10 downstreams and too many backend services, and almost close to 300, 400 APIs will be integrated for some of this testing. So during that testing, we find the issues related to anything with parts getting crashed, or parts not having enough capacity, or it could be the servers is running very hard with the CPUs, or memory leaks are happening, or you know maybe circuit breakers are not correctly implemented and it is breaking after certain number of the users or the transactions it hits. So all of those things will be closely monitoring. So one of the continuous monitoring implementations is the implemented through all of the different monitoring dashboards like Grafana and the Dynatrace and the Neuralink. So all our operations teams will be part of some of these tests and continuously monitoring these systems and measuring their infrastructure and their APIs, and we provide the transactions per second how we are doing, and once we hit certain limit of throughput and the transactions per second, how our systems are responding, basically, right? If one of the system goes down, how is other system is responding, and there is a lot of failover testing happens in between. So all of the with the failover testings also happen in between these peak season volume testing. So because the doing this peak season, the peak season is one of the very critical and important for us with this kind of a larger applications, because some of the applications that we are supporting during the peak season, even if we lose the reliability, if the application goes down for 1 minute, we lose almost anywhere between 1.3 to 1.8 million revenue loss per minute. So there is a lot of stress on our teams to make sure all of these test cases are automated and we run really in a production to make sure entire end-to-end ecosystem is stable and running through. And my team, we spend a lot of time on the weekends and the weekdays, running this kind of a huge load test. And of course, there is all the DevOps team will be part of this, and we have a lot of continuous monitoring, and if there is any problems, immediately they go and fix the code and deploy it all the way through the continuous integration process of using all of these automation tools. So next slide, please. So what the end in the automation looks like, right? So we have come a very long way in the last 2 to 3 years, I would say. Um, we deliver very fast right now with the automation, and our quality is increased by 80%. Our member and the client experience, our net promoter score is positive. And we reduced our cycle time almost by 80 to 99% with the frequent deployments depending on the teams. And again, we improved the IT operational efficiency, breaking down more of the center of excellences into more of a silos team, into a more of a self-service based, and everything automated in the DevOps as part of the DevOps teams and as part of their Scrum teams. And the DevOps team has improved there. We saw the DevOps team is improved by 15% in the productivity, and there is a 19 to 20% increase in the revenue. And I see a lot of happiness between the developers and the operations team, how smooth the things are going. And the biggest winner is the last year, the 2019 peak season end, as well as the beginning of this year, January 2020, we had a 99.99% availability, which never happened. So this was one of the biggest achievement we had, and this lot of teams were involved to make it this very successful. So this speaks the volume of the automation, how we moved in the uptime, and how the automation is playing such a big role. So my final takeaway is automation is not just one person's job or just one team's job. It is everybody's job in the organization. Automation is everyone's job, no matter what industry you are in. It's a big or a smaller, and it doesn't matter what industry you are. It could be auto industry, or it could be IT industry, or it could be healthcare or retail. automation is one of the very critical for the growth and the revenue of the company. Automation really don't take away jobs. It will make the people to think more innovative and make the things more interesting, and people get more time. The teams get a more time, leisure time to enjoy what they like to do. Thank you. Thanks for having me.